Howdy folks, how's it going? That is Lake Mendocino there, Mendocino County, Northern California. This is the area where I was raised, in a small town north of here called Willits. I'm here visiting my mom, who lives in the area here. Just kind of taking a break from the travels for now. I was here for the holidays, so it's a couple of days after Christmas. Middle of winter, or at least beginning of winter. A little bit chilly, but the sun coming out there, so kind of warming up for today. So I'm just hiking along this trail here, kind of a jeep road, and I just thought that I would tell a few of my travel tales from my past number of years of traveling. So this one is from Hawaii, the Nepali coast of Kauai, and also where I've spent a lot of time, visited a bunch of times, and lived there a couple of different times for about a year in total. And I've hiked out to the Nepali coast along the Kauai Trail many times, like 7-8 times, something like that. And I was just there this last summer with a friend. I have a video about that hike out there. It is a multi-day hike to get out there. It takes a day or two to hike out, and then you camp, and then you can stay there for a few days and then do the hike back. It is a very intense trail. But this story is from a bunch of years ago. Wow, 19 years ago, which was the first time that I hiked out to the Kauai Valley. And so I spent a fair amount of time out there that winter of 1997, and it was towards the end of my 2 months in Hawaii. I'd flown out there and done the Hawaii beach bumming backpacking thing for 2 months on both the Big Island and Kauai. And it was towards the end of my 2 months, and I was still out on the Nepali coast at the Kauai Valley, a beautiful beach there. And I was there with a friend, this girl that I'd met on the island, and we were fasting. And so there's kind of part of the issue that turned into a almost drowning incident for the both of us. And so we'd hiked out there and spent a few days, and then I forget exactly what the circumstances were that we decided to do this fast. I've done a few fasts in my life, a kind of spiritual cleanse experience, and then you maybe do meditation and yoga and write in your journal and read and just kind of take a little break from the usual routine. I think it might have been that we also wanted to extend our time out there or something, and we didn't have enough food, and so we were like, okay, well, why don't we just fast for a couple days? It might have been something like that, I forget exactly. But we were a day or two into the fast, I forget exactly, and we decided to go for a swim. The waves weren't that big or anything. We swam out a little ways, and then I was there in the water, not far from shore. Where I was then, the water was not that deep. And so I was probably, up above my waist or something in the water, standing on the sand, and all seemed fine. I was just chilling. And then I happened to look over and see that my friend there, I forget her name unfortunately, was in deeper water. Even though she was like from the shore there, she was just straight over this way, and yet she was struggling in the water, and I could see that she could not touch. And so obviously she was in a riptide where it got deeper right there, and I just hadn't realized that was the case right there. And so I saw her struggling all of a sudden, and I swam over and tried to help her out. And so I swim over to her, and I try to grab her, start swimming back towards shore, something like that. And quickly I realized that this was a losing battle for the both of us at that point, because the riptide was trying to draw us away from shore. We couldn't touch there, and the water was kind of more churned up, and suddenly I realized I need to fight for my own life here. I cannot be risking drowning, and in that case both of us drowning in the course of trying to save her. So all of a sudden my priorities shifted, and I was fighting for my own life. And I remember that I could just barely touch the bottom going underwater a little bit. And so I just remember struggling against the water there, and being able to go down and kind of touch the water, and then push back up and get a little more air. And so it was just a sudden, life or death kind of a situation in which it was rather a blur, but I truly feared for my life at that point. And in the process of trying to stay afloat, then I completely forgot about her and lost track of exactly where she had went and what had happened to her. And I was seriously concerned that she might have drowned. Now the first thing to keep in mind here with these kinds of situations, which it's easy to forget, is that you don't want to struggle against the water. And that's exactly what I was doing, and I'm sure what she was doing as well, because that's how you wear yourself out and end up drowning. What I should have done is swum sideways, and I don't recall if I did that consciously or not, but that must be what essentially happened, because all of a sudden I realized that I could touch, and was able to get up out of the water, and I was fine. And that was the point at which I was very kind of freaked out about looking back and seeing if I could see her or not. And I turned around and looked back, and she was quite a ways behind me, away from the coast, and yet she was now in a place where she could touch as well, and she was kind of stumbling through the water towards me. So it was just this channel of deeper water there that we gotten sucked into, and fortunately both of us managed to get over to the shallower area and get free. But that was one of those circumstances that can absolutely result in drowning, does result in drownings. There have been many drownings at the beaches out there on the Nepali coast, so we were very lucky. And the important thing to keep in mind is, if you get sucked out into a riptide, then don't necessarily go with your first instincts of swim, try to fight the current. In fact, sometimes the best thing is to just let yourself go, even if it means being swept out to sea. And then oftentimes those currents will curve, or they'll lessen. I'm not necessarily saying that you should do that. There's no way to know. You don't know where the current's going. Sometimes it can be the case. I've heard stories, at least, of people getting swept out and then eventually being able to get back to shore another way. The point being to not wear yourself out in the course of fighting the currents, because it is a easy way to wear yourself down very quickly. So, what it comes down to is just be very conscious swimming, of course, but especially in Hawaii, there are big waves, there are currents, riptides, etc. And so always good to be conscious when swimming. And of course, part of the situation was the fact that we were fasting, as I mentioned, and thus we were not at full energy levels, and so we were kind of depleted and drained. And so that may certainly have been a factor there. It wouldn't have changed the fact that she got stuck in that situation, but we might have had more energy to be able to swim against the currents and get ourselves out of that a little bit easier. Perhaps, you never know. But anyways, stay safe in the water. All right, take care. Hasta luego. Aloha.